everyone can jump on as they're jumping on. I've hit record and here we go. So it's 1:30. Thank you everyone for your interest in the circular economy. And I'm just going to go back to gallery view there. And how we can make Los Angeles a more circular city. So the Circular Economy Club is the great organization, and I'm the organizer of the new Los Angeles chapter of the Circular Economy Club. So I encourage you, all of you, to join that chapter, or if you're not in Los Angeles, you can start or join a chapter in your own city. And this is a nonprofit, free to join. I'm a volunteer organizer. And it's just a really great organization, and their whole goal, I'll share a short presentation, is to just increase circularity in cities globally. So our Los Angeles event here is just one event of at least 50 global events taking part all across the world. In the US, I know Denver, Seattle, Miami, they're all hosting events. And then of course, Asia, Africa, everywhere. Major cities are hosting circular economy events during Circular Cities Week. So as you're all jumping on, I want to give a shout out here to Nicholas Brown. If you turn your video on again real quick. Nicholas has been my co-coordinator to help me put together this wonderful panel discussion that we have. He helped me secure these panelists. He's next to me on my screen here, but go ahead and there you are. Okay. And Nicholas is a networker extraordinaire whose personal goal in Los Angeles is to work with his organization that he's a part of, Fashion Revolution, to just kind of bring everyone together to galvanize these causes. And Nicholas, if you want to say a word or two, please, you can do so. Oh,
well, I'm super excited that you're heading up the chapter here in LA, and I think I'm really looking forward to hearing what Mark has to say. If they're going to talk about maybe this new textile hub initiative from LA Sanitation, is something I've been dreaming about. So I'm looking forward to this call. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. So I know many of you know him. Networker extraordinary. He's the reason many of us come together. So thank you. So I'm going to do my own screen share. And what I'm going to just talk about real briefly is the goals of the Circular Economy Club and the Circular Cities Week that is happening now. So just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, perfect. So it's Circular Cities Week this whole week. It coincides with United Nations has a Circular Cities Day tomorrow on the 31st. And let me move my screen over here. So it's in 140 countries, 6,500 professionals. It's a nonprofit, it's global. Any of you can join online and it's for free. There's local chapters around the globe. They have certification programs and a variety of experts that can help mentor you and do some exciting mentor sessions. So it's a really great global organization that I encourage all of you to join. Their vision is to create a new era where all cities worldwide function through a circular model, setting an end to an age of waste. And they want to bring the circular economy to cities worldwide, building strong local networks to design and implement circular local strategies and embed it in both the education system, the business sector, the public sector, et cetera. So circular cities, multiple stakeholders. This is a snapshot of last year, how many cities hosted events in 2019. So this is the second annual Circular Cities Week. So this year, 2020, there will be a lot more yellow dots, including a new yellow dot right about there. And then just a super quick overview of the importance of the circular economy. So here it says 80% of unrecovered materials from the over $3 trillion worth of goods are unrecovered. So there's a huge global opportunity. So it means we're currently only using about 20% of our waste materials worldwide. So this is one of the biggest global economic opportunities right now. And we need to bring this number down and bring our number of what we do use up. So lots of room to grow there. And that's the purpose of this session. And here you can see sort of a life cycle of the business process of going into circular economy. So a circular city involves stakeholders at every level. And this is defined by the Circular Economy Club. To eliminate the concept of waste, use waste as a resource, keep assets at the highest value of all times, and use technology to enable the shifts toward the circular economy. And so it involves the city, the public, the citizens, businesses, organizations, educational institutions. It really takes the whole web of everyone working together to achieve a true circular economy. Based on the 2019 event, and again, this is our first time joining it, so we will have new takeaways, but determine like top sectors that need to manage their waste much better would be number one. That's my industry and a lot of our industries here, fashion and textile, the built environment and construction, food and beverage, tourism, agriculture. So there's so much room for opportunity in each of these sectors. And there are challenges too. So sometimes the benefits of a higher cost can be unclear. But the thing we always need to take into mind with the circular economy is that the linear economy, the cheap prices do not account for what happens to these items and materials once they leave the business, once the consumer's done with them. All the waste and pollution, none of that is factored into the price of a true linear economy business model. And so it can seem more expensive to join the circular economy, but that's only because the linear model is artificially priced and doesn't account for all expenses. And then here are some kind of tools and things. So like buildings as material banks. As Nicholas alluded to, we're going to hear something about that from Mark from LA City Sanitation. A circular city scan to map material flows, leveraging biomimicry and design, prioritize recycled and reused materials, and behind my window here, rental models in mind. Oops. Go forward. So for all information regarding Circular Economy Club, please visit this website. Right on that front page, you can find your local chapter, you can join your local chapter, you can start up your local chapter if your city does not have one already, like I did for Los Angeles. And here we go, our panel discussion. So I'm going to introduce our panelists. I'm going to put my window away there. So first off, we're going to start at the top from the mayor's office. We have Elena Guevara, who's a policy analyst. She works on the sustainability initiatives with Mayor Eric Garcetti in that office, and works on implementing Los Angeles's Green New Deal. And sorry, my notes on the wrong page. And also focuses on resource recovery and food system initiatives laid out in the Green New Deal. Mark will speak next. He represents LA City Sanitation and also works on a group, LA Industry, within the sanitation. And he said something in one of our recent calls that part of his job and purpose is to change the idea of government from like the overseer and the regulator to a partner and an advocate and an enabler. So they're working hard to partner with different organizations to help them increase their sustainability initiatives. Kelly is the Director of Sustainable City Solutions from the LA Cleantech Incubator, which I myself happen to be a part of, and I know a couple other of our attendees here are also in the Founders Business Accelerator with me. So I'm very happy to have her on. She works in the pilot sector of LACI and helps to get pilots off the ground of new initiatives from ideation to conceptualization to stakeholder engagement. So these new technologies coming down the road, Kelly has, a key part in that. And then we're going to wrap it up with Stephanie Pincetl from UCLA's Institute of Environment and Sustainability. She has a PhD in urban planning and literally wrote the book on land usage in California called Transforming California, the Political History of Land Use in the State. And she also focuses on environmental and equitable justice through sustainability in the circular economy. So with that, I think that's it. Thank you. Okay, so again, go join the LA chapter, join your other local chapter. I'm gonna come back to the group here. And with that, Elena, if you wanna take us through your presentation.
Sure. Thank you so much, Karri, for that introduction and for the invitation to join you all today on this really great panel. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can you all see that? Are we good? Okay, awesome. As Karri said, my name is Elena Guevara. I sit in the mayor's sustainability team, where I help oversee our waste and food related initiatives. And I'm really excited to talk about and dive into some of the circular initiatives that we've been working on in the city of Los Angeles. And just a little bit of background on our specific team. So the Sustainability Office helps oversee the overall implementation of the Mayor's Green New Deal, which is his vision for a city that is sustainable, equitable, and prosperous. So I'm going to begin with an overview of the Green New Deal. Can you all see like the little gadgets in the way or no? Are we good? Okay. So what is LA's Green New Deal? The Mayor's Green New Deal is an update of his original Sustainable City Plan, which he released in 2015. And when he released the original plan, he committed to updating it every 4 years as a way to really take stock of what has changed in the world, both technology-wise, policy at the state and federal level that could facilitate us achieving some goals or not, and really an opportunity to reflect on the 4 years of implementation and push harder in areas where we are able to push harder. And a key change in LA's Green New Deal and the update of the sustainability plan was a refocus around our commitment and the role the city plays in upholding the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. So with support from an organization called C40, which is a coalition of mayors from mega cities across the world, all working on various sustainability initiatives, we were able to work with consultants and technical expertise to be able to map out our emission reduction pathways and really have those at the core of our targets and the policies and programs that we've laid out in the Green New Deal. In addition to our commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement as a key principle, we also have the responsibility to deliver environmental justice and equity through an inclusive economy, ensuring that every Angelino has the opportunity to join this green economy, and a resolve to demonstrate the art of the possible by leading the way and really showing the city and the world what's possible by leading by example with our workforce as well as through our own city operations. And it's important to note that when we think about the Green New Deal as it relates to our emissions, we've kind of boiled it down to LA's 5 zeros, which you can see on your screen right now. And that includes zero carbon grid, it's really decarbonizing our energy sector, zero carbon buildings, zero carbon transportation, zero waste, of course, which I'll be diving into a little bit more, zero wasted water. It's important to note that within the various sectors in the city, waste is the lowest in terms of emissions. However, throughout the past couple of years, those emissions have been increasing. And so in the update of the sustainability plan, we knew that we really had to hone in on what is possible in the waste sector and increase ambition, because in order to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, we can't have any sector really increasing. So diving into our waste chapter and the goals in there. Hold on. There we go. So diving into the waste chapter, we've laid out these 4 overarching goals. So increasing our landfill diversion, really reducing our municipal waste generation from the get-go, and including phasing out single-use plastics by 2028. Eliminating organic waste from going to landfill. So it's important to note within our waste sector, organics makes up about 30 to 40%. So it's quite a large problem, but really also quite a large opportunity for us to really rethink what we're doing with this waste and rethink, the benefits that could be achieved if we were to, just address differently this waste stream. And last but not least, the goal to increase the proportion of waste products and recyclables productively reused, not only within the city, but also working with other cities in the county and with the county government as a whole to be able to achieve that. My colleague Mark will dive into a little bit more of that in his presentation. So I want to hone in specifically on what we're doing around organic waste, since it is kind of the largest makeup of our current waste stream. So moving into a little bit more about increasing circularity in our food system. So the way we've kind of thought about the role of the local government here is beginning with designing out waste. So really looking at our current policies and what they are helping to enable and what they're helping to, in some cases not enable. So modernizing our environmental purchasing policies so that we are in a way really voting for the world that we want with our own purchases. And using that as an opportunity to push the market on various waste reduction initiatives. As it relates to our own municipal operations, really looking at zero waste events and surplus food policy as it relates to those events. We're in a place where we're not having events right now, but still pushing forward on this so that baseline policy is set so that when we are having events in a future, that's already good to go. And then also pushing for food rescue, food recovery within our city contracts. So Recicla, which is the city's waste franchise, was really the first, at least to our knowledge, kind of program to institutionalize food recovery requirements in the contract. So our waste haulers are contractually obligated to put money towards food rescue organizations and food rescue activities within the city. Moving on to keeping materials in use, as it relates to food rescue, really looking at the highest value in terms of use of the food, so really getting it to human consumption. So really building out that food recovery network within the city. One of the biggest barriers we've heard from all the various organizations working in this space is infrastructure, and really having both the refrigerated transportation as well as the refrigerated storage to be able to move this food from where it's surplus to where it's most needed. And so we'll soon be piloting a program to kind of fill in that gap through transportation services. We've also laid out the goal of food scrap collection citywide. So our Bureau of Sanitation has been conducting various pilots to figure out the best way and best kind of diversion mechanism for food waste. And last but certainly not least, really kind of making the circle come full loop with regenerating our natural system. So with food specifically, for food that's no longer able to be consumed by humans, looking at what the best next use is. And composting certainly has a huge role to play. So we're working on rolling out composting drop-off locations at our farmers markets. Sanitation has for many years now been doing compost giveaways, so kind of helping close that loop in terms of the mulch that they're able to produce at their Lopez Canyon facility, and having that free of cost to Angelinos who need it for their own home projects, home gardening. And something that was really exciting, and we heard very loud and clear from stakeholders when we were updating the Sustainable City Plan, was around this concept of healthy soils. So we're now embarking on developing a healthy soil strategy and really making the connections between, food diversion, as well as its role in soil amendment, and then its role in helping us increase the health of our soils for increasing water retention, biodiversity, and ultimately having that kind of feed into our carbon sequestration. And that's just a quick overview of what we've been working on, and a deep dive into a specific area. We certainly still have a lot of work to do. This is just kind of a specific example. And with that, I can take any questions. Let me stop sharing my screen.
I have a question. Am I allowed to just ask?
Yep, go ahead.
Yep. Okay. Since New York City passed their single-use plastic ban recently, or plastic bag ban recently, I was wondering what LA's stance on that is.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? And did I stop sharing my screen? No, okay.
So I was just wondering if the mayor's office has any opinion or any plans for like a plastic bag ban in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so we do have a plastic bag ban. There's a fee on plastic bags. I think it's statewide, but as it relates to expanding that to other single-use plastics, perhaps folks saw the county also included that goal within their sustainable county plan, and so we've been working with them. Because we've heard from industry and restaurants that it's not helpful when cities kind of move in their own way. So we've been trying to stay aligned with the county, and we're working on a single-use plastic reduction policy. Prior to the pandemic hitting, we're obviously in a different place right now. Our food retail sector has been really hard hit, and so we obviously want to be cognizant of any additional regulation coming down. But at this point, we're still open and working on a policy. But it's in this time we're really looking at being creative with how and in the timing as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I had a question. My name's Serena, and I was wondering, I read about 2 of the pilot programs on the website, on LA Sanitation's website, about, I think it was called InSync and Curb Your Waste. And I was just wondering how those were going, and if you guys have discovered any barriers that are preventing them from being implemented.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I can't speak in too much detail, but I can share what I do know, and I'm happy to follow up with more detail if it doesn't suffice. So for the Incubator program, there's definitely a lot of considerations as it relates to what it does to our wastewater system, and so we have to be careful when we're also kind of talking about other local water related goals. And so I'm not sure where that pilot stands, but we had also been, and I don't know if you mentioned it specifically, we had also been piloting the food scrap in the green bin program, and having that sent to an anaerobic digester. And from at least the current kind of follow-up and analysis, it's looking like that might be the approach that we take, but I can follow up with more detail or connect you with the right folks at our Bureau of Sanitation if you need.
Yes, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Ardia, do you want to ask your question? Because Elena just mentioned the green bin
Sure.
program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elena. My name's Ardia, and I was wondering, I used to live in San Francisco and had an apartment where I could take my compost down to the trash cans and put it in the right bin. And I was wondering the plans for that being available in LA.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that is part of our food scrap, citywide food scrap program. And so depending on these various pilots that our Bureau of Sanitation has been conducting, we'll have to, weigh costs and impacts on our other infrastructure as well. But we do recognize that there's there's multiple approaches that need to be taken for single family residents and folks living in apartment buildings. So currently within what the Bureau of Sanitation oversees and the facilities that they service, they focus on our single family residential. And so the program rolled out through them would help provide that option for folks living in single family residential homes. And that's why we're also working on drop off locations at farmers markets so that we open up that opportunity and option for folks who might live, who don't live in single family residential. As well as continuing to build out the network of composting sites with nonprofit partners like LA Compost, and helping overall support that more local infrastructure.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And let's do one last question for Elena.
Elena, I have
Donnie had a question.
Sure. Considering textile and clothing industry and LA manufacturing is kind of at the top of the list, I was just wondering if there's any initiatives to encourage the use of green energy in LA manufacturing, as well as in any incentivization to be green, whether it's from efficiency using technology or things of that nature.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thanks, Donnie. So in terms of like incentives, I'm not sure the specifics on perhaps like incentives for industry through our Department of Water and Power, but our Bureau of Sanitation also has a green business program where they do outreach to the various businesses in Los Angeles and guide them through a certification process to become green businesses. And as part of that, they do get like environmental consulting or sustainability consulting for their businesses free of cost, and they're able to join a statewide network that could potentially bring benefits as it relates to marketing and other stuff. But my colleague Mark will dive into a little bit more of the specifics around what we're doing with textiles.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And go ahead, Mark. We'll move on to our next panelist. Thank you, Elena.
Okay, great. Let me just share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, cool. Okay, thanks, Karri. Thanks, Elena. So my name is Mark Su, and I'm with the City of Los Angeles, LA Sanitation and Environment. And for Circular Cities Week Los Angeles, we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in the textile industry. So just a brief outline of what we'll be covering today. We'll start with some background and then move on to the two projects / programs that we're kind of working on in specifically with textiles. So just some brief background. The City of Los Angeles, LA Sanitation Environment, we have three main program areas. So it's clean water, watershed protection, and then solid resources. And then within every program area, there are different projects and other initiatives that support each one, such as circular economy. So currently, this is the state we're in. We're in a linear economy, and it's super detrimental to social, environmental, economic costs. It's a take, make, and waste mindset. And this is what we're trying to move towards. So we're trying to move towards a circular model, as Elena has mentioned previously as well. And as you can see, there's either minimal residual waste or ideally there's no more residual waste as you close that loop. And specifically, our two programs will be focused on right here, production, between like production, manufacturing, distribution. So post-industrial waste basically is what we're focusing on. So just to reiterate, we have a very aggressive Green New Deal with very aggressive goals. As previously mentioned, 2028, 100% organic waste diversion. And then 2050, we have a goal of 100% landfill diversion. And again, this is kind of some background of how we concluded to start these pilots. So you have previous Governor Brown's statewide 75% recycling initiative. You have the State Bill 1383, which is calling to reduce organic waste to landfills, and applicable textiles are actually categorized as organic waste. And then you have LA's Green New Deal, which specifically states to pilot a sector-specific recycling program, as well as engage the textile and apparel industry to develop and implement zero waste manufacturing strategies. So moving on to the two projects. So the two projects are very similar. They share the same end goal, but they have slightly different approaches. So this is the first one. It's called the Material Exchange Pilot Project, or that's just the generic name we're going with right now. Both projects are focused on post-industrial textile waste. So the premise is that we're conducting a feasibility study to focus on post-industrial textile waste, and we're seeing the cost benefit of a materials exchange program for LA City. And kind of how we got to this point was, as Karri introduced, I'm on a team called LA Industry, which is a pollution prevention and sustainability team. And we work with specifically LA businesses and industries. So, and we provide like sustainability outreach and such. So through networking and our experience and stakeholders, they were voicing that a lot of them wanted to not throw away a lot of waste products that they had into the black bin, but recycling was not such an easy approach either. So they're kind of like, there's a huge gap to be bridged. So we kind of explored, that's why we're exploring the idea of a material exchange web portal. So basically this will be kind of like a Craigslist with more facilitation and quality control and quality assurance, and where industrial sectors can share available waste streams. And the idea is to kind of obviously to stimulate business collaboration, and even amongst businesses in different sectors that might not even have previously collaborated prior. So I'm going to go over briefly the 5 tasks that we have in the scope of work for this small pilot that we're doing. So task 1 is obviously the pilot study itself. We're looking to create a roadmap of A's, B's, and C's of what we're calling it in the textile sector. So essentially an A would be the producer of waste or scraps or anything like that. Company B or B's would be like the intermediate processing steps. So let's say like someone who's sorting or shredding or what might need to be done to that waste stream before it can be reused by company C. So we're looking to identify the A's, B's, and C's so it'll be much easier to make and facilitate those connections. And then working with a consultant, we're getting funding secured right now. We'll do assessment recommendations, which is basically just taking the data from all the exchanges and really just giving some assessment recommendations for the scalability potential. And then we have a bunch of other details too, but I don't want to get into it right now. I think the slides will be shared later too, if anyone wants to read over them later. Third one will just be to kind of, this will be more soft, like push through education on general circular economy principles that, so since our team already does outreach, we'll focus really on circular economy towards these businesses and industries. So there'll be the push for like physical connections and as well as like for general education of like why this might be a good path to choose. And then the fourth task is less so focused on textiles, but more so again, pushing for that bigger goal of just circularity by setting up a call for innovation challenge, which will be an open solicitation of ideas and proposals for one challenging waste stream that doesn't necessarily have to be textiles. And then finally, the fifth one will be like developing a circular LA framework. So what this means will be identifying barriers to achieving circularity, systems change for circularity, and then a short, medium, and long-term roadmap. So while this is focused on textiles, it's also focused on setting the stage and paving the way for the broader goal of eventually reaching circularity, not just in the textile waste stream, but in every waste stream. But this is starting off with just a focus on textiles for the sake of the size of the pilot. Okay, so our second project that we're working on, it's still fairly new. The name is literally just My LA 2050 grant. So it's a grants challenge that we applied to, and then we won third place amount of $25,000. And with that sum, we're looking to partner with some of our connections to kind of have the same goal as a material exchange pilot study, but from a different angle. So the end goal is still to create a material reuse marketplace locally in the city. But the first project is kind of from a hands-off, just pure facilitation online approach. And then this one is kind of the same thing, but through a more hands-on, providing sorting bins, sorting education, etc., and setting up a physical hub or a physical location, like a warehouse or something that shoppers or these industrial users can come and see the catalog of available sorted waste. And again, it'll have the same quality assurance, quality control as the online web portal. So again, very similar goals, but the first one is more online focused. Second one is more of setting up a physical place, but both are driving towards the same goal of creating a material reuse marketplace in the city. And we're kind of starting with the material stream textiles and hoping to expand from there. So yeah, there's no scope of work yet really for this that is set in stone. So we're still in the process of creating it, but just wanted to introduce you guys the second project we're working on. So yeah, with that, are there any questions?
If you just go away from your screen share, Mark, and then we'll go back to everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mark, this is Ardia. I have a question. When do you expect the call for innovation to be open?
Okay, so that is still quite a bit away. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to refer to project 1, project 2. So project 1, we are working on securing funding internally still with obviously COVID-19 and impact to our budget and everything. It's kind of a rocky road to climb through or to walk through to get funding approved. So, but we're really positive that and hopeful that we can get that funding pushed through. So once that starts, then the timeline can begin of working with a consultant and other partners to develop that call for innovation challenge. So I would say it's quite a bit away because
Yeah.
we're looking to develop like a very robust call for innovation challenge that has like panel of judges, like a very decent prize, maybe like a contract with the city for that product or something like that. These are some ideas that we've been thinking about
Yeah.
internally in our team. So
Awesome.
I have a question, Mark. So I think that the reuse and materials exchange hub is a really cool idea. I know it's probably far in the future, but I was wondering location-wise, where in LA, if you guys have thought about a location for like the first spot at all.
yeah, so location will be currently it will be like based off of probably the pilot results. So when we're piloting, I'm not even sure where that location will be, but like the final location, if everything falls into place and we end up actually creating the hub with all the positive results, will be definitely based on the pilot results of the mapping out. We're also including looking at disadvantaged communities and everything to see the most strategic location. So as of now, there isn't like a set location that we've thought of.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas, do you want to ask your question? I saw you raise.
Hi, Mark. My understanding was that the grant, I think they got maybe third place, and it was like $25,000, and the scope was for $100,000. Is there any effort into raising the rest of that money? Are you working with any partners on kind of to keep that original scope?
Yeah, so the original scope was less so of a pilot and more so of like just trying to go for it. But obviously we scaled it back down to a pilot to accommodate for the $25,000 rather than the originally applied for $100,000 scope of work. The partner that we're planning on working with we're planning to get or to pitch to brands once we're at that step to match us for donation. So I don't know if we can reach back to 100,000, but we're planning to get matched in our funding, or that's the approach we're taking. But worst case, obviously we just go through the pilot and a scaled down version, but we will definitely look at an option of trying to get funds matched once we're at that step.
I think with the brands and manufacturers here, I feel like pooling resource, I feel like matching the money is totally possible. I hope that can happen.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah. Yes, hi, this is Michael Simpson from LASAN. If anybody in the audience or has any potential partners, please email Mark and we will look at that contact and see if we can help us join in this project. I'm the division manager for Industrial Waste Management Division. Great job, Mark.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, just to follow up, that would be really helpful. I don't know if everybody caught my email. I think the slides will be available, but if anyone has interest or they know someone or anything of that degree and they would like to contact me, please feel free, shoot me an email and we'll connect and talk offline.
Mark, I have a question. My name is Sofia Sarachansky, and I'm very interested in this topic. However, I'm not living in LA area. I live in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, Northern California, and I am not aware of any of these efforts taking place here in this area. I am wondering what are the possibilities to create collaboration and to also learn from the lessons of all the work that you and your team has been done so far. Could you speak about that?
So one of the connections that we have, they're called the California Product Stewardship Council, and from my knowledge, they are either completed or are physically already doing a pilot that is similar to along the lines of this, but for post-consumer textile waste. So not sure if, again, it's here, maybe I should type it in the chat, but if you can, maybe you can reach out to them and contact them, because are you, I don't know where in the Bay Area you are, but they're in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm very close to San Francisco. If you please type the name of the organization, I'll be able to reach out to them and see what they're doing, just to learn what they're doing.
Okay, let me see if I could just link their website.
Oh,
But yeah, they from my knowledge, they are doing something similar in post-consumer textile waste.
Okay, so we'll be able to circle back to this, but we're going to move over to Kelly from the LA Cleantech Incubator. And just a request from, I love the questions. If possible, when you ask a question, if you can show your videos, so because it is recorded, and it's nice to see faces in this place of physical distancing. So let's move to Kelly from the LA Cleantech Incubator.
Great. Thanks so much, Karri, and thanks for inviting me to participate in this event. It's really exciting to hear from our friends at the city, and I think you'll be hearing some very common threads because I know before Mark and I have had some phone conversations. This is actually my first time seeing him in the COVID world. So it's nice to see a face to the phone calls we've been on previously. So I am excited to share what it is that the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator is working on, and what role we kind of play in this large picture. So for those not familiar, we're LACI, the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator. We're an independent nonprofit that was founded from a relationship with the city of LA, as well as LA Department of Water and Power, to really charge up the green economy in LA. And for almost 10 years, we've been working with clean tech startups to build those companies out and have them commercialize their technologies. And then over the last 2 or so years, we've really been expanding the focus of what we do beyond just supporting startups, but really looking at the ecosystem in whole. And then started really focusing in particular technology areas. So we have kind of 3 core pillars, we call them. One is unlocking innovation, and that's our work with startups. Then we have market transformation, which is where I live in the organization. That's really about focusing on partnerships and pilots, as Karri mentioned earlier. And then what is a common thread through all the work we do is about enhancing community and how we bring in diverse founders and diverse teammates to LACI, as well as deploying our pilots in underserved communities so that there is access to the benefits of the green economy for all. And we also have a, just to note here, we also have a really interesting workforce development program. And we have been doing several cohorts of that in terms of focused on EV maintenance training as of late. And so I'm excited to see, as these efforts build out, if there's possibilities to weave in workforce development programming as well. In terms of where we focus in technologies, probably over the last 2 years, our biggest focus has been in transportation. We have a transportation electrification partnership that is really geared towards advancing zero emissions transportation in advance of the 2028 Olympics in LA. And we have a lot of focus with our startups and pilots in that area. And then next is probably clean energy, where they're all kind of intertwined in the world of sustainability. But over the last year, we've really earnestly been thinking about, like, where does LACI play with smart and sustainable cities? If you ask any individual about smart and sustainable cities, what does that mean? You'll get probably a million, like each individual respondent will give you a different answer. And so we have been trying to define what that means for LACI and where we can play. And so in that regard, we are going to be embarking on really developing out this program. So just as a bit more context, we really play in kind of three areas when we're looking at market transformation, and that's with policies and goals. We've already heard from Elena and Mark about the city's goals to, with the Green New Deal, to reduce waste to the landfill to zero by 2050. And with that kind of guiding goal, that's really what targets our efforts in terms of how can we help the city achieve these goals through supporting emerging technology companies, through pilots, and through developing partnerships. When we're looking at partnerships, there's a number of elements that go into every partnership we develop, and that's in the middle of the slide here. It's really about the governments that we're working with, and in many cases when we're deploying pilots, the specific communities we're deploying pilots in or with. Of course, startups play a key role, and so that's everything from really early stage companies that need a kind of proof of concept to companies that are a little later stage, but it's, particularly in this space, it's an entrenched space, especially in kind of the waste diversion area. So how do we infuse it with emerging technologies? So that's going to be a really interesting and core area that we can play in. And then, of course, there's interest from corporates on all sides, and our partnerships are really reliant on having those network connections and that institutional knowledge. And then last, but of certainly not least, our funders. So all of this work takes funding. We often get grant funding to support our pilot work. And so that is going to be a core element in terms of supporting both startups and any sort of pilots that we're doing. And then really, as we're looking at circular economy, we're thinking about pilots. So what is the major goal that will drive pilot selection, and what pilot projects can we do that can unlock the barriers that enable a more circular city? So we just heard Mark talk about the materials exchange program. That is something that we've talked about previously with LASAN, and how we may be able to support in that effort to do a more digital focused effort on that front that's akin to some of the cities that were previously mentioned, like Austin's material marketplace. Other areas that we are looking at that are much more capital intensive, much kind of longer term vision, are things like a materials recovery facility, commonly known as a MRF, but for particular waste streams that are immensely challenging to address. And so that is one area that we're also looking at in earnest, and how we can help support that by looking at different types of business models to finance that kind of effort. And then another angle that is a possibility is really kind of taking a company or corporate example. The one I have here is, how, if let's say you have a vehicle, how do you design a vehicle so no aspect of it at the end of life goes to waste? And so that in itself can really impact a lot of different industries and byproducts of how vehicles are produced. And that's just another example of where we're potentially looking at playing. And so this is really exciting for us to be participating on this panel too, because of all the partners involved. So thank you, Karri, for inviting me again. So on this front, I was talking about how we're parsing out how we look at sustainable cities in particular. Three of the core areas that we're looking at are water, resiliency, and circular economy. And again, these things are all interconnected, but when we're thinking about circular economy, that's going to be our main focus for at least the next year. And when we're thinking about that from the emerging technology space, some of the areas that we're going to be looking at for engaging with startup companies are around two primary areas. The first being digital solutions to reduce waste. And we heard some examples of this earlier, but how can we, supply chain assessments, LCAs have been around for a long time, but are there new tools and are there new tools in the space that can really help transform efficiencies in supply chains, and also offer new access to equity in the labor market as well? We're super interested in that. And then, again, this is kind of along the same thread, but tracking analyzed food waste or any other types of waste streams. How do we more effectively do that? water, from the water side, it's about assessing how efficiently we use it. And then digital twins are really great modeling tools for when you're trying to look out at a big picture, when you have basically like a pilot. And so we're really interested in utilizing those tools and how we can more effectively plan out future expansion of projects. When it comes to new materials, we have a number of areas we're looking at. I know that there's a lot of fashion and textile folks on the call here, so I'll highlight a few here. But we're really interested in a lot of spaces here. You know, whether it's new fibers or just ways to take old fibers and make them new again. We're very interested in that, and the processing that is incorporated in creating, you know, our apparel. So whether that's more efficient ways of less harmful chemical processes for dyeing materials, any sort of water savings, things like that, we're extremely interested in as well. And one of the, well, we are a Cleantech incubator, obviously, and one of the reasons I've been focusing a lot on the emerging tech side of things is because I want to alert folks on the call that we will be opening a new round of recruitment for our incubation program. And this is a unique time because we have recently relaunched our incubation program, and we have a new cohort in, but this will be our second cohort. And so we're super excited about it. And we are very eager to engage with startups in this space. So whether that's you or someone you know, please let them know about this. It'll be open next week. And you can see over here on the right some of the areas that we're looking at. Some of them I previously mentioned. And I'd say even if a company doesn't fall squarely in that space, they can still apply because we have a lot of opportunities for companies that we can support. Especially one thing, like one caveat, since I know there's a lot of people from other places on the call, is that we definitely prefer companies to be from LA or from the Southern California area, just because it's the best opportunity to take advantage of the resources we provide. So I will leave it there and see if there are any questions. Feel free to reach out offline as well if you have some direct questions.
Kelly, if you just stop screen sharing, we'll go back to everyone. And then I would just like to say, as someone who is in the Founders Business Accelerator, which is a light touch program with LACI, apply. It's so beneficial, and it, you know, I'm learning so much. And Kelly works with the, you know, more of the incubation program. So I think you guys are such a great program, and I'm happy to be involved. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay, well, let's segue, because you mentioned water usage and resiliency. So let's segue to Stephanie from UCLA's Institute of the Environment and Sustainability. And very good. Oh, Stephanie, unmute yourself and then your picture will show up here.
There we go. There we go. Thank you, Karri, for organizing this and for the really wonderful presentations, and also for this initiative, which I think is pretty critical. I've had an opportunity to think about these issues for some time and worked on the issue of sustainable cities for some time. And I thought maybe I could give you a little bit of overview of some of the issues I see coming through these different initiatives that we might give a little bit more consideration to. And then we can have a conversation, but I'm also cognizant of the time and I want to be succinct. One of the things that, despite it all, is still really lacking is very good waste characterization. we don't know really how much waste is collected per collection area. We have not characterized the waste stream per land use very carefully. So we know, for example, that in the commercial waste, you have apartment buildings over 4 units and the rest. Well, that's a very difficult thing to really understand. Who's producing what exactly and how much? And what that means is if we can't characterize the waste carefully in the recycling stream either, we are missing lots of opportunities. Now, waste characterization is difficult, it's time consuming, and it's expensive. But we're talking about a problem that we have that we actually don't have enough data on. We're getting better, but we are still far from really knowing exactly, say, how much cardboard that mall produces per week. And it's that kind of thing that will help us really get a grip on what needs to be done for zero waste going forward. So by place and by land use. And then you can begin to really target the high waste generation sectors and the types of waste for waste reduction. So one of the things that I find very interesting in this conversation is we're concentrating on the waste product. We have not yet had much of a conversation on why we have so much waste to deal with. And clearly, to get to zero waste by 2050, continuing to generate as much waste as we do generate seems pretty daunting and quite expensive to boot. So the production of waste needs to come back into the conversation in a very serious manner. It's difficult because manufacturers push back, as we know, tremendously for that waste reduction, but it remains still an enormous question. Can we continue to consume as much as we do and more probably, and aspire to arrive at zero waste? I think it's a non-starter. So how do we then begin beyond single-use plastics, move to a conversation where we understand that waste reduction is the first step to arriving at zero waste and doing better in that regard. So let me give you a tiny bit of background on me. I direct California Center for Sustainable Communities at UCLA's Institute of the Environment and Sustainability. And among other things, I have a passion for the question of land use and land use regulation, and the relationship between how we regulate land and the question of waste, for sure, in so many sectors. But one of the things that I've been doing in the past 10 years is really trying to characterize aspects of flows into cities, and that's called urban metabolism. So urban metabolism is essentially all the flows that come into the city, water, electricity, products, and so on, and then how they're used, by whom, where, and the waste flows out. Well, it turns out to do that well is very difficult because there's not much of that kind of information available. So we have been in the we've chosen a few targets where we've done a lot of work to get data. I will spare you the wars that are involved in getting that data, but we have electricity and natural gas use per parcel across LA County and beyond, all of Edison territory, all of Southern California gas territory, and all of LADWP territory. And then you begin to match that to sociodemographic characteristics, the equity question, to the building age, and so on. And then you begin to be able to read that landscape about who uses how much, under what circumstances. And that's really part of trying to move to a sustainable city, because we can't just assume that sustainability is matching current use, but more efficiently or with renewables or using less, making products more efficiently. So that's a really big point here that I know is extraordinarily difficult because cities do not control legislation. that force corporations to use fully 100% recycled materials, for example. And to think about the toxic substances that they use in their products that we inherit at the tail end of the process. But given that LA is part of a C40 network, it seems to me that it's time again to begin to raise these questions, even though the current political terrain is a little iffy, about what we have to end up dealing with at the tail end. So that, I think, is a very, very big point. The next point, and I'll shift to the next slide, is it was very interesting to hear that basically we are accepting, we're not thinking even more creatively about these waste flows and what new manufacturing, what new ideas we can generate within the city. And we're relying on the status quo to help us out dealing with these different materials. So it seems to me that we actually should create a reuse research and development incubator in its own, and to think about what that would entail in terms of developing skilled jobs and a local specific manufacturing sector. Not something, that you can find across all cities. And I will be a little bit pointed here. Cleantech is fine, but it doesn't really address local conditions in local places. It's a kind of generic idea, which is a good one. I'm not saying it's not a good one, but there's much more to be done. So can we use this fabric waste, not matching it to some other industry, but think about the manufacturing potential available in the fabric waste. You can get, it's very difficult to get, but you can get a recycled blue jean insulation. You have to really work to find it. But fabric makes great insulation. So what are the economics of generating a new industry that uses our products and it gets embedded in buildings? That's going to last a really long time. It's not, it's a really valuable way to reuse fabric. And not all fabrics are going to be possible. And, there are lots and lots of details there, but that's why you need a research and development incubator. So I think about Detroit, and the Shinola products, right? Shinola, Detroit, made in Detroit. Maybe with all this fabric, there's some really nice cottons and linens. How about making paper? This very high-end, beautiful paper. All of that requires really skilled labor. It requires thinking about how much water you need. Think about removing dyes. There's a lot of complexity there that enables us to develop a beautiful workforce and manufacturing that is sustainable, right? Because it's built up from the ground up. Cardboard, paper, wood products, all of these are now moving into the construction material stream. What can we do to facilitate that? There's a lot of waste, paper and wood related waste. Is there something there that we could begin to develop? Maybe not a full production of big laminated beams, but maybe something short of that. Instead of, thinking about how to reduce it from the dump or from being exported abroad, can we think about what we can make uniquely here in LA with those construction materials? And I could go on. And so it goes beyond the matching with existing industries, which is very important as well. And extraordinarily important, but it's not enough. I think we have to push our imagination way beyond these kinds of approaches. And so my experience is that we settle for a kind of status quo. Oh, we have to deal with all this waste. How are we going to deal with it? No, we say, first of all, there's too much waste. We can't continue to waste like this. So what are the interventions that we can make? And that helps to know who's generating what kind of waste where, so you can make targeted interventions, like how much energy is used in this neighborhood versus that neighborhood. And secondly, can we grow our conceptual imagination about the kinds of products we can make with highly skilled labor in LA? And it's not, pardon me, not necessarily high tech. Not every solution is a high tech solution. And sometimes those high tech solutions have huge environmental burdens because of where the minerals are extracted, the amount of energy and water and pollution that comes from those, and so on. So we have to be really much more thoughtful and analyze what we can do here and grow those local industries. So I could go on for a long time because I've studied all this stuff for a long time and professors talk too much anyway, but I thought I would just interject those few comments, and I don't mean them in a disparaging fashion in any way, except to say that we have to go farther and quicker, and that it's sad to learn that LASAN is advancing these programs with competitive grants of $25,000. I mean, that, and I understand the reasons for that, but I think that's a reflection of how little we think this is an important question as a society. And we need to really break through that, that dilemma. So thank you. I'll stop sharing. And there you have it.
Thank you. I actually have a question or a comment, but I know when you and I talked before joining the panel, we talked a little bit about the single stream recycling and how that's a problem. And Mark and Elena, perhaps you can jump on this too, of really knowing what's in the waste stream, because it all goes in one bin versus a plastic, a cardboard, and often that cardboard gets contaminated, et cetera. So yeah, what might be solutions around that?
Okay, so this is going to sound very retro, but there was a time when you source separated your recyclables. And you know what? You had a lot less contamination. So what are we doing here? We're making it easy for people to generate unrecyclable results. It makes no sense to me. I lived, in full disclosure, in Beverly Hills for 12 years. And I had this huge fight with sanitation. It was like, what are you putting that gigantic bin for in the alleys, which is like, you know, you could put an elephant in it, for mixed recyclables? It doesn't make any sense. The other program was working just fine. Thank you very much. So I think we need to recapture a little bit of the dialogue and the systems in order to be able to deal with problems like that are not that complicated.
I'll just add also, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to this education question, right? Of how do we, I mean, obviously a change in our local recycling program would involve a huge reorientation for folks. But I think it brings us back to this broader education piece that I think also starts to touch on, you know, this our waste generation, and just educating folks that this is a problem. I think that we still have a lot of work to do on making people realize that when you throw something away, it doesn't go away. There's something that happens to it, and it has a consequence. So I think that, you know, that there's definitely a lot more work that we need to do, but it brings me back to this education piece. And I don't know if we have time, but I'd love to hear folks' thoughts on, you know, that mass education piece, and whether there are, you know, more clever ways to get the word out there, or whether there have been particularly like great messaging schemes that others have seen either in other cities or for other things. But I don't know if we have time, Karri, so I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, no, we can go a few minutes over, that's fine. But yeah, I think that's, the education aspect is huge, especially, with UCLA, and I teach at Woodbury University. So teaching these like next up and coming professionals in the world to have circularity and sustainability ingrained as part of their ethos in college, so that when they come out as professionals into the world, they're making changes in where they're getting hired, they're starting their own businesses with these instilled in, inside them. Stephanie, I really dug this idea of a reuse research and development incubator. Is that like a brand new idea? Is that something you heard from somewhere?
No, that's so I was one of the team leaders for the LA County Sustainability Plan, and clearly a lot of the same issues were discussed during that sustainability plan, and the question of waste. And so knowing of LACI for a long time, and the interest of the state government in fostering new businesses and new technologies, it occurred to me that one of the big missing elements in LA is appreciating the enormously skilled labor force that exists here. They are not university graduates, okay, but they have a lot of skill and in doing things and making things. And so we're jumping over the enormous resource that we have here in LA to achieve some other kind of future that may not really be very relevant with climate change and everything else. So how can we think about creating meaningful, well-paid circular economy jobs locally with our situation here? So, I learned that LA County has the biggest handmade guitar manufacturing sector in the world. Oh no, in the United States. Who knew that, right? Can't we grow stuff like that, right? We have an enormously significant clothing industry. How does that, where are those connections? Rather than a kind of more rote, if I may be so blunt, approach to this problem. So learning and knowing the waste well, matching it to the potential skilled jobs, I think is really important. So that's why I came up with that idea.
I had a comment again on the education kind of angle about getting the word out and trying to, get this to start sooner or be more ingrained. And I was wondering, maybe Elena, has the city ever, I know we can't do like the community outreach, and I know there is a lot of work in that, but has the city ever tried to partner with like LAUSD and work with, school age kids, maybe doing like, some kind of a week-long project or something like that? Because it just seems like the younger the kids are that are introduced to this, the more impactful it can be for the long term, and they can even bring that education home to their parents. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think sanitation they do like if schools reach out to them for presentations, they certainly have a program where they go out and present on different topics. Sanitation covers a lot more actually than just waste. But I don't know if Mark has anything else on that to add, but it's not, to my knowledge, a like ongoing program for all schools. It's more so on like a one-on-one basis.
That is correct. This is not Mark, but this is Michael Simpson, Industrial Waste Management Division Manager. LASAN has a broad base of educational programs, all the way from stormwater, clean water, and some on recycling. But our biggest program right now is called One Earth LA. It's a new program that's championing our sewer science and our clean water system operations. So we take that program mostly to middle and high school students. We try to create the next environmental stewardship. We do have circular principles in that curriculum, and we do stress a lot about ways to be a good environmental stewards for the city of Los Angeles. For our education concern to community groups, we are reaching out to some of our cleanup, green up community businesses. And when we reach out to them, we'll tell them about the opportunities in the circular economy, especially the one with this textile hub that we're proposing. We do believe there should be more research and opportunities in Los Angeles. We recognize Los Angeles County has the most manufacturing in the United States. And through our LA industry program, we do meet with industry. They give us the waste stream they can identify, and hopefully through their talented personnel, we can find something to do with that in this material exchange program. So we don't have a formal research repurpose institute like Arizona State have, but we're moving right in that direction. Thank you.
Well, I want to give a shout out to LASAN actually. Out near Pacoima, there's a big park with a lake. I can't remember the name of it, but you guys have this incredible educational facility there with conveyor belts that kids can pick the recyclables out of, and a big trash truck, and there's a demonstration area about water conservation and all kinds of things. It is incredible. Of course, it's hard to go there now with kids, but actually LASAN has invested some real money in this direction. But I think that, you know, we always look at kids to change things, but really it's our behavior that needs to change. And the fact that the sanitation departments caved into this one bin approach, it didn't need to happen, you know, it really didn't need to happen. And it's kind of giving up. And I think that people are more capable of that, of behavior change than we give them credit for. It takes time. You know, before Mayor Yorty, LA had a vast recycling program. And then he hated it and got rid of it. So, you know, those things come and go, but it's not impossible at all. We don't give ourselves enough credit.
Yeah, we agree with you on that aspect. And we also agree that in LASAN, we do have a green chemistry program and biomimicry. We also want to get that information to our industry so we can take it, as we call it, in front of the pipe. How do you make products? How can you increase your bottom line by using more sustainable materials that can be rejuvenated or reused in somebody else's production? So that industrial symbiosis is what we're really aiming for, that like they do in some of the European countries. But first, we got to educate our audience, the people who are under sewer permit with us, that allow us to create those conversations as we walk their manufacturing floor.
And
I just want to add to the single stream recycling that was mentioned earlier and the education focus. So in our second, so I talked about pilot 1 and pilot 2. Pilot 2 is focused on the physical creation and more of a hands-on approach. That would be more single stream recycling. Actually, both would, but pilot 2 would be even more so, as we were planning on providing like the bins, as Stephanie was saying, rather than just throwing it all together to be contaminated, actually separate at the source and sort by color, content, whatever, provide that education so it will be much easier to recycle. And just adding to what Michael was saying about the newest educational program we have called One Earth LA. Again, it is targeted more towards like high schoolers of that age to foster the next generation of environmental stewards. We are, again, this is not set in stone, but we have an idea of working with a local textile manufacturer. They take post-consumer waste and turn it back into like a reuse line of everything from deconstructing it to designing to remanufacturing into clothing. We were in talks, this is pre-COVID, to see if we could get some grant money and have them host like educational workshops for students and stuff to learn like some hard skills in like sewing or whatnot in that textile sector. So again, referring to really capitalizing on not just the local community, but really encouraging setting the precedent to create these jobs that are not available right now, but in the future will be, and really teaching them some hard skills.
Can I just make a comment? Would that be okay? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, go
Okay.
Go ahead.
The time is short, so I could go on and on. I've been working on the area called circular economics for over a decade, published papers, and I now have a book coming out on it and given lectures all over the world. Two things I just wanted to mention. The first one is up in Northern California, there's a group called Green Biz. It's in Oakland, and it's been working on this too in terms of trying to find different sort of companies or new startups or even companies that are still in existing. They've worked with Apple Computer and also with Google in terms of circular economics and how to bring that together in sustainability. My point though here is in Los Angeles, and by the way, just so everybody knows, I've got 3 earned master's degrees and a PhD and 1 year at law school. So I've had enough education. I understand that. But no one's smiling? No. Okay. Anyway, the point is that I think what you have to do is focus more, not just on is there a particular product that can come from the recycled, whatever it happens to be. And the issue is, what are you going to do with that product when it also turns out to be, dated or whatever? And of course, we all know that it's true with our iPhones, with our computers. It's going on and on and on. There are companies, some of them in Europe, who are actually doing that. And I think what we have to do here in California is bring these kind of companies here to do the education and also the product. The current governor of California, Gavin Newsom, is actually supporting a program for circular economics. And I can see where here in Los Angeles, it would be a good way to kind of, make that link happen. Plus the fact, and then I'll end it, I think there should be some kind of a degree program. It's not an MBA program, it's an MCE, Masters in Circular Economics. Because frankly, everybody, circular economics is totally different than linear economics. That's why they call it circular. And the whole issue about supply demand is going to change because of what's this thing that's been going on for about 8 or 9 months? The pandemic. I'm sorry. I don't want to be political, but yeah, we have a pandemic here. It's around the world, and it's not going to go away in early 2021. So what we have to do is start thinking of the future now, but it's going to be a different future.
Thank you. Kelly, you were wanting to jump in.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I just wanted to, I flagged something in the comments in the chat just about, I wanted to point to Stephanie's comment about just like workforce development and making sure that the solutions that we're coming up with are local. And generally speaking, like LACI is a very LA focused organization, from the startups that we support to the solutions that we're providing to local communities through our pilots. I flagged in the chat a particular program that we're operating called our APC Fellowship. And it's really focused around green jobs, training and development. And we really try to coordinate it with the startups that we support, as well as other initiatives that we're developing. And I really see, as we build out our work in circular economy, the opportunities to dovetail and build and support a workforce around that. So I'm very excited to do that. And I invite Stephanie in to have a chat afterwards so we can talk a little bit more about this and learn from her expertise.
So I know all of us could talk about circular economy all day long, especially in textiles and et cetera. But it is just about 3 o'clock, so we are over. We got to wrap it up sometime, but this has been so enlightening, so informative. I'm very happy with all the participants who joined, and especially with my panel, a true panel of experts from the various sectors across the city. So I'm grateful, and thank you to my panel and to my co-organizer, Nicholas. And, with that, we'll call it close on this event, but we should have more of these discussions as we go. And one last comment from Woody, who raised his hand.
When's the next one going to be?
Coming soon. I do monthly free workshops. So this, I'll be hosting them regularly, but others can host too. So
Well, if you need some help, let me know. Okay.
thank you.
Or if you take ideas. Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And you can find the recording and the slides from this on my website, circularfashionla.com, and I'll email it out to all participants. So thanks again. All right.
Karri, just a quick question. If we want to kind of just stay in the loop about what's happening with this chapter in specific, is there any way to do that?
Yeah, so if you go to circulareconomyclub.com and find a chapter and put in your zip code, you'll find the LA chapter. They have a map. So you can join the LA chapter. If you're not in LA, you can join a different chapter. But yeah, and then that and the Circular Economy Club has like a vast LinkedIn and Facebook group and stuff. And then as far as like my organization, my network, I'm just doing email newsletters and stuff like that. So definitely ways to stay in the loop, but circulareconomyclub.com to join your local chapter.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. If anyone else has things you want to say at the end here, I can keep it going.
Thank you, Carrie. So good.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Woody, what were you wanting to say?
No, I'm just going to say when my book comes out, which may be the end of this year, early next year, if you want, we can do a book thing, and I'll sign them if people want to or whatever. But it's an important topic, and it's not going to end soon.
Yeah, and I just see Woody, but what organization are you with, or where?
The last name is Clark, and by the way, I am in Beverly Hills. Well, where's the lady who used to be here? And I last taught at UCLA, and then right now just have my own company, and it's both in the media and communications, but focus a lot on circular economics globally.
Woody, I would love your email if you want to put it in the chat.
You don't have it because when I logged in and all that, it's not anywhere else.
You can just post it in the chat if you're comfortable doing that.
Well, I can just tell you all now, right? WW Clark, the number 13, the @ gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. Be sure you tell me who you were and where we met and how we met.
I will.
Okay. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.